Oh my God. Hi people. What a bloody week. What a week. Honestly, from people just being proper miserable. Like last night I had someone, and I'm gonna say, or allegedly, or whatever they say nowadays, I think doing drugs or taking drugs at the back of my car. I saw bare white powder afterwards, to like just having like a proper like emotional conversation with someone like moments ago. Like I had to take a ride. I took a ride after because it was taking me close to home, but I've just kind of like come to the conclusion that I'm just gonna just turn the app off and just go home. Like I've just completely been like semi kind of drained from the conversation. Not drained, it just made me emotional. I've had a lot of things going on this week, and it's kind of, in some respect, it's not tipped me over the edge, but it's made me reflect a bit and made me kind of want to go home and just be not by myself, but just kind of like just take a bit of time to myself, do you know what I'm saying, and just kick back, because it's been a long week by way of working. But I'm gonna go straight into it. Yeah, I'm gonna kind of just go straight into it. So like, picked up this guy, Brazilian guy, really cool guy, and he was just telling me that he didn't say he was running late actually, but he was telling me that he's got a gig tonight, like stand-up comedian, got a gig tonight. Yeah, he was just telling me he's got a gig tonight, and I was listening to something on my on YouTube via my earphones, which funny enough was how to monetize storytelling. So I allowed him to tell me his story, funny enough, or just tell me why he's in London. He was telling me how he's come from Edinburgh and he's made his way down south, but at the same time he's got his company to pay for the trip. And he was telling me about obviously some of his family members, and how some of them, or one of them, sorry, has had a baby over the past, just say, couple of weeks, and obviously just stopping over to see them and just kind of like kissing babies and all that type of stuff. Well, you know the term anyway. But on the subject of storytelling, he was talking about how he got into becoming a comedian, and then I told him that obviously I've got a book about my experience as a ride-hailing app driver. And I was telling him about all the different type of topics and things that I've come across. And sometimes when I'm telling the story, or when I'm telling people that I've got a book, I can sometimes stumble upon a story, but sometimes I can also stumble or forget actually not what the book is about, but some of the topics. But I stumbled upon the story in regards to my dad and my family. He was telling me about his family, which is the reason why I brought up my dad. And I told him about my book, and I was telling him about actually the hook in the book, which was about my dad's story and how he came from Ghana and come to the UK, and how, you know, he was a banker and left Ghana because of the coup and stuff like that. But long story short, I told him that me and my dad didn't necessarily get on very well, but through my book and through my experience, you know, there was a bit of a bond, a connection. I understood his story a lot more. But I told him about a girl who I picked up before in the car, and she was Portuguese. I remember telling, she was Portuguese, and she lived in Portugal for a period of time with her ex-boyfriend. But she came back to London, I think either due to the breakup or due to the fact that her parents, I mean, they're older. They'll get a bit older, a little bit ill, and she wanted to spend a bit more time with them. And I remember her telling me that she wouldn't be able to forgive herself, or she would find it very difficult if her parents like passed away and she wasn't there for them, or she wasn't there when they needed her help. And that's kind of like what kept her from leaving London again. But you can tell she really wanted to get back on the road and kind of like live her life. And what I posed to the guy was the difficulty that I was having, or the difficulty I'm having now. I said, because that story she told me then, I'm kind of living now, in that my father's a lot older, like struggling with his health, all that type of stuff. But what I told him was, I said, the difficulty I'm having at this moment in time is, the statement or the question I posed was, at what point do you start living life for yourself? Yeah, at what point do you start do you start living for yourself and not your parents, if that makes any sense? I talk about the fine balance. And he looked at me and he said, that's an amazing point that you raise. And then he told me about his mum and his dad, you know, and how, you know, they come from Brazil, and, you know, and the sacrifices they made. And he spoke about his mum, but at that point he broke down, at that point he broke down and he said, you know what, like, goes, that's like, and he kind of told me it's an amazing story, an amazing point you raised. He goes like, my mum, the only thing she ever wanted to do was to go to Paris. It was like her dream to go to Paris, and unfortunately she suddenly passed away during the pandemic of leukemia. We didn't go into obviously the passing and all that type of stuff, but he said she suddenly passed away. And bro, like, he'd gone from, like, he was the oldest of his siblings. He'd gone from this like burly man to someone who'd become very open and emotional. And I was struggling for a second. I've had a very difficult week in regards to family, friends, and all that type of stuff. And and there's no shame in it, but I was very close. You know what I'm saying? I was kind of like choking on my words and stuff like that, listening to his story. And, you know, he was very sad, you know what I'm saying? But obviously, like, I hope I told him anyway. But, like, you know, like, what he's doing with himself now, he's making his family and making his mum proud, you know what I'm saying? But proper cool dude, man. We ended up exchanging details and all that type of stuff, and said we'll look out for each other, because I told him what I planned on doing in regards to some content creating, so we're going back and forth. But proper cool guy, man. But that's just one of many stories, like, generally I have, you know what I'm saying, like, inside the book. The audiobook's gonna be dropping at the end of this month, at the end of August. But I've had some mad shit take place this week that's really kind of like thrown me off the edge in regards to, like, I'm just like almost tired of people. That today has made me feel a lot better in some respect, as to like having proper, like, touching and honest conversation with people. But sorry, no, I showed him my cue cards. I showed him my cue cards in regards to the content that I'm going to create, and he was feeling it, so that's proper cool. But like something that also like fucking threw me off, and excuse my French, today, well, not today, was it yesterday? Goodness gracious me, I think it was yesterday or the day before. I picked up these girls, and again, long story short, like, she, like, sorry, this guy playing music, thumping, let me just move a little bit further ahead. Sorry, like, she was telling her, so she's got a baby, and her friend didn't know or doesn't know who the father is. And so this baby is now talking, you know. I think this baby goes to school, so it's not really a baby, it's a toddler. But she was saying she had the baby out of her want to just have a baby, like randomly just had a one night stand, had the baby, and again, just kind of like skipping through the gears, she said, like, doesn't talk to the father. The father, that she would often walk past the father in the street with the child, you know, and it was mad. And just, she went on to say that the child is proper, like, really insular, very sensitive and all that type of stuff. But then at the end of the story, she goes like shit's now become a bit technical now. The father's now passed away, and she doesn't know how she's gonna break that story to her child. I was thinking, what the fuck is going on in my community? Like, and I'm not talking about my race or anything, I'm talking about what is going on. You've decided to have a child, like, on a whim, you know, you fancied having a child, which is neither here or there. And by the way, I tell stories which are true, which have taken place, but at the same time, I also can't be hypocritical, because I know I do things myself which sometimes is not correct, you know what I mean? But I'm telling stories about people which, for me, I find, you know, just bizarre, their decision making. But again, I know things happen. But you've had a child on a whim. Like, we all of course, you know, like, dads or mothers sometimes don't play a role in the child's life. But you walk past this man with your child, like, knowing that's the dad or the father of your child, and now the dad's passed away, and now you want to communicate or let your son know that the dad's now passed away. I'm just like, I was just thrown off, man. It really fucked with my day, that did, my evening. And the thing is, they were cool. Do you know what I mean? There was a part of me, so there wasn't a part of me that wanted to say something. I think I was really angry at the time, but it really pissed me off, man. And just generally, like, the mood and behavior of people over the past week has just been unacceptable in terms of it's moody. Do you know what I mean? I got a seatbelt sensor, and I don't want it to go off. In fact, I was going to take my seatbelt off, but I don't want to cause any real issues in regards to the seatbelt. I'm talking about with the law enforcement, by me taking it off. If I do this, you can hear it. Cool. Now, there are people that get in the car that have this assumption that I'm just telling them I want them to put the seatbelt on. No, bro, or love, or ma'am, or however you want to address people. Like, I've had people come in my car and upset that the seatbelt sensor's not turning off because they put the seatbelt in the wrong socket, and I've had to inform them, no, you cannot use, like, if you're sitting on the right hand side of the car, you cannot put the seatbelt buckle on the left hand side of the car. You got to use the one next to you. This is not rocket science. And I'm having to go back and forth with people. And then there's people who think I'm telling them to put their seatbelt on, thinking that, like, I control the sensor. No. Like, there was like one point this week, the sensor went off for about 15-20 minutes. It's almost like they were playing chicken with me. Like, this is not a game. I'm not here playing games with you. The seatbelt sensor is not going to turn off until you put the seatbelt on. And then they eventually put the seatbelt on. Like, who are you fooling? You're not fooling me. God. Anyway, like, I'm going to change my face because it's a bit funny in terms of the way it was fixed. But, yeah, it's been a bit of that was an emotional one, man, that guy, man. Like he was really, really upset, man. And it kind of like, yeah, he was really upset, but he was a really cool dude, man. I hope obviously his set goes very well today. I'm not too sure whether I want to tag him in there because it's a very sensitive issue for him, you know what I'm saying? But he's doing his family proud, and good luck to him, you know what I mean? Good luck to him. Anyway, guys, take care, look after yourselves, yes?